Hello and welcome back to
Mr. Black.
which I just realised when you say it like that is quite weird. Today, Duncan Casey and I are going to be discussing Paul Anderson's masterpiece, Alien vs Predator, which we both have deep and complex feelings about. Ollie is not here because he's going to be doing a retrospective upon it in the future, I have been told. So if you want to go bother him on Twitter about that, please go nuts.
He loves that.
He loves that.
Loves
At OllieH82. Go crazy. So Duncan, where do we begin with Alien versus Predator? Probably
Why not at where it began?
in a pyramid.
Well, no, further back than that. In a 1990 movie starring Danny Glover, in which some bright spark in an art department put a fucking alien head in a shot.
Yeah, you can do that because it's all Fox. You know,
it's all Fox. It's all foxed.
Fox. They
It's all been
foxed it
foxed
right up.
And thus the rumour mills began, and then didn't Dark Horse get
Well,
hold
there's
of
the
it?
Dark Horse comics. I think the comics might predate that skull.
Yeah, I thought they did.
I think they do.
I thought they were
Someone will correct
80s.
us, I'm awfully sorry
Yeah.
about that because there are interim. You know, Dark Horse are on the case. There are interim Terminator comics as well. I've got a collection of comics that take place before Terminator 2 came out.
Wow.
Even so, they're wonky, but they're good,
Are they?
wonky fun, but they're very strange. Yeah, Dark Horse and this kind of movie stuff, particularly Alien Predator, they're all over.
Right.
But cinematically speaking, the first hints of that were in Predator 2.
Yes.
And you know, and I do think this exists beyond schoolboy fantasy, because I think when it came out, there was lots of kind of like, it's pathetic, because I hate all that. There's a real snobbery about it, like of course it's bad, what did you expect, and all that. And
It didn't have to be. It really didn't
absolutely
have to be.
did not.
At
Absolutely
all.
did
And I
not.
mean, you know, so we were saying just before we were rolling that this was definitely part of, and perhaps it was right, kind of at the start, along with Terminator 3, of this backlog of sequels that were talked about through the 90s. We had this. I remember because you and I are old enough to remember that huge gap between Terminator 2 and 3. Now it's kind of like, oh, Terminator sequels, another one. But there was a real feeling like that was never going to happen, and that you know it was all just fan wishful thinking.
Either Cameron was going to do it, or no one was going to do it. And that was that, and it was a big old gap.
And there was a comic.
10 years.
Yeah, 12 years, in fact. And there was that comic where they posited the idea that the Terminator's carried on because of Arnold's arm that's left in the cogs and stuff like that. And there were all sorts of quite interesting ideas for sequels that just didn't go anywhere. Now it looks like we're actually going to get sequels. Anyway, we're not talking about Terminator, but AvP was. It was almost talked about too much. I think it was almost a foregone conclusion. But it was just. I think for the 90s there were so many rotten buns in the oven that were taking forever.
Well, my analogy was like these were farts that were being held in, and then only when they're truly mature did we get to smell them.
Yeah,
and smell them we did.
The Hollywood sphincter loosened up and out they flowed in relatively short success. Well, over about 10 years.
In the fart analogy, because we're, you know, I have a degree in film, so I can say this. AvP, you know, Terminator 3 is kind of the one that really hurts and then comes up very loudly and smells, whereas the AvP is kind of one you think is going to be big but then doesn't make any noise or smell of anything. Yeah. But it is ultimately still a fart.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it was, I mean, so obviously it was a case of, and I remember in the 90s, there was a quote from Sigourney Weaver who was asked about doing it.
It sounds awful or something.
And she just said, no. And I guess it was just a case of a lot of people trying to put together how this would happen. And then the next thing I knew of it officially was seeing, I remember they put it online, this is a long time afterwards, Paul Anderson's pitch, in which he was in a room with all this artwork that looked cool, but his pitch, on camera anyway, was sort of like, yeah, then the blades are really long, and he has the disc is now like a shuriken, and it goes snick, 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 and it was just all talking about the details of all the new Predator shit, which encouraged me initially because I was like, oh, yeah, because I want this to be about Predators, because Predators was my favourite one, and it was like Alien had just been, we'd had Resurrection and stuff in the meantime, and Alien 3. And I was just like, yeah, come on, go back to the Predator, because he's really cool. I think Predator 2 had really been a kick in the balls for the Predator character. Which I don't quite get, because I like that film.
We will get into that in another episode.
Yeah.
It's going to happen, but sure.
But so I was hyped for it. My only experience with Paul W.S. Anderson had really been Event Horizon. I hadn't seen anything else he'd done, and I think everyone knows I quite like that film. So
I think it's his best one.
Yeah.
And my relationship on this channel with Paul Anderson is long and complex, and we'll discuss that in a moment. Please carry on.
no. So, but that was really the lead up to it, and my understanding of the backstory of it was all built around that. And so, yeah, once it started to evolve and I started to see what it was about, I think like the biggest letdown for me in that interim period was the fact that they weren't going to make it, but they were going to set it on Earth, and they weren't going to make it about.
I think setting on Earth in any time prior to any of the pre-existing Alien films is a mistake.
Yeah.
Because then you're saying the Xenomorph was on Earth, which is a massive mistake, complete continuity headache.
Yeah.
Like it's,
and you have to end every one of your films with the world exploded so that no one found out about it.
Yeah, because the whole point of the Xenomorph is this is overwhelmingly, because the pitch for Alien 3 was, on Earth no one can hear you scream, said the trailer that meant nothing.
Yeah.
But you'd finally see that happen, and then it's hinted at the end of Resurrection.
Yeah.
So to do it purely in a continuity sense, having the Predator on Earth as a kind of sentient species, not a hive mind, fine. And that's where the first film started. But to have the alien there, just doesn't make any sense. Well, I know. Well, the situation supposedly. At the time, and I remember this when this was all kind of, because I've always followed movie news as long as I've had an internet connection, which I suppose is analogous with my relationship with hardcore pornography, but never mind. This film happened because Ridley Scott and James Cameron had a pitch for a Alien prequel that they were going to make for $200 million, and Paul Anderson had a pitch for Alien vs Predator, which was $50 million, and Fox took the cheaper option. This was in the days of, what's his name, that big producer executive guy at Fox who did things like that. I can't remember his name. But maybe I'll put it on screen if I can find it, or maybe I'm talking out my arse. But anyway, and they went with the cheaper route. And at the time, I was like, oh my God, I really want to see that Alien prequel. Oh my God. 2018, Richard, does not agree with that sentiment. That has come, much like one of these held in farts, that has now come to pass, and that is not good either. But at least it looks nice. AvP does not look nice. We'll get into that. I think, again, at the time there's lots of snobbery, kind of like, well, of course it's shit, what did you expect? And I reject that wholeheartedly. I think there is a good film in there. I think, unfortunately, the Alien films have never quite got out of the shadow of Aliens. I think it was too kind of monumental. Predator, I would argue Predator's never really escaped the shadow of Predator. It's this really, again, it's kind of monolithic, I think, in that franchise. You got close, I'm not saying that. So it already has those problems. I'm not a fan of Paul Anderson. I understand that he's a really nice guy, and the more I kind of have a go, the worse I feel. But this is the dude who got the job that my hero George Romero was fired from. Right. And it was on a game franchise I love, which he didn't just do a bad job of, he ruined, in my view. Remade Death Race, one of my favourite Corman flicks, and did a bad job of that. Though it's got Statham in it. I think
it's not too bad, but
it's one of his least worst.
Yeah.
But if you compare it to the original film, it bears no resemblance. Why are we here? So I have lots of issues with Paul Anderson as a filmmaker. Most of them are on a technical and writing side, because he is a writer-director, and he is not a good writer.
British Zack Snyder.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because I was just thinking that when you were saying he kind of is the British Zack Snyder, because if you look at the Predators in this,
the word's cheaper.
Oh, sorry, yes. As is
the British film industry,
and just things in general.
Yeah.
I won't get into the red letter media comparisons, but you could say we're the shit red letter media. That'd be very kind of you, and probably a bit charitable. It's like, well, this is better because it's bigger.
Yeah.
And the Predators are better because they're bodybuilders now.
Yeah.
The way I see it is, because Zack Snyder, as much as I dislike his films, he's an amazing visualist. He's an incredible visualist. I don't agree with his scripts and stuff, but the man knows how to shoot a scene. Zack Snyder is a dickhead teenage boy, and Paul Anderson is a dickhead teenage boy. Zack Snyder was a dickhead teenage boy that would give you a punch and take your lunch money. Paul Anderson was the boy being punched by Zack. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like horny teenage dickhead geek, horny teenage dickhead. He's kind of... You know what I mean? So he seems kind of quite friendly and geeky, whereas Zack Snyder's all kind of dude bro.
Yeah.
But they both come from that kind of horny, priapic.
Well, by all accounts, I think they're both nice people. I mean, I don't know.
No. I'm in no way suggesting that Zack Snyder would, but because he's kind of like, he seems like a lovely guy.
But it's interesting, you look at Paul Anderson, it's like you see a lot of actors wanting to work with him again, and you see, I gather he's got caught in a sort of he's circling a drain. That's not a very nice analogy. But it's that thing of like, everyone likes to come back to work with him. He seems to bring a lot of the same crew and a lot of the same cast with him everywhere. But he's just got caught in that gravity well, if you like, of making stuff on the cheap and delivering a product that does turn a profit, and therefore, I don't think anyone's ever going to go. No one seems to turn around and go, right, we should give him more money because he'll turn that into more profit. It's just a case of, well, he's the guy who can deliver it for cheap, so here we go.
Well, and that's how this film got made.
Yeah.
So let's get into it then. I mean, in terms of, we've discussed the context, I'm sure we can come back to it. The plot of this film is that underneath the snow place, the Antarctic, I can't remember which one's which, there is a pyramid what used to have some people in it, and they worship the predators and the aliens, and they used to sacrifice people to the aliens.
Aztecs,
and then
right?
Whatever, and then no, it's got signs of every culture. Regardless of the fact that the predators are supposed to thrive in a hot climate and all the rest of it. So there's an underground temple where they sacrifice people. It's a place for the teenage predators or adolescent predators to prove themselves on Earth, which is, for a start, a problem. A team of largely anonymous humans come to investigate the pyramid, and they all get killed by the aliens and the predators. Spoilers: the humans win.
Well, whoever wins.
I forgot. Do you know what? I forgot about that. He just fucking said it. And it's based from the outset. The setup is very similar to Prometheus. And it's the group of people. And something that Paul Anderson likes to do, and he did it in Resident Evil as well, is here's a group of elite commandos or soldiers or whatever, and they are going to the place. And it is
aliens.
And Predator.
Yeah.
But they're all, the genius of both Aliens and Predator is that they, in the broadest and shortest of strokes, they give immense characterization to these teams, and they're all so different. Whereas, in Alien vs Predator, Ewan Bremner is there, Colin Salmon are there,
Tommy Flanagan.
You'll notice that I'm calling them by their names and not the characters'
Tommy
names.
Flanagan's character has a really weird name, and I only know it because he shouts it out. So he's like Verheiden or whatever. It's like Verheiden or something.
Oh yeah, Verheiden, because it's the name of Mark Verheiden, who wrote the AvP comics and Time Cop comic as well, I believe. That which was a dark horse joint.
Right.
But when I look at Predator, I don't say Carl Weathers. I don't say Arnold. I don't say Jesse Ventura. I don't say Shane Black.
Yeah.
I'm saying Blaine and Dutch and Dylan. And all the rest of it. And then in this, I can pick out some of the actors. Sana Lathan is the main character.
Right. She's great.
Yeah, she's. They're
all great.
They're all great, but they're completely wasted. And it's the same. It's the same as Resident Evil. They go into an underground base and they all die.
Yeah.
And then the Predator teams up with the human, and then they die too. And then she gets the kind of Predator 2 Danny Glover moment of being recognised by the predators as being some hot shit, and they blood her. Yeah, too good. And
Gadget. I'll get you next time, Gadget.
It's all covered in there. It's edited really badly, like all Paul Anderson films. It's covered really badly. He never uses long takes. He never uses long shots. Everything's in mid. Like there's one of the really frustrating bits is when Lance Henriksen, which is another continuity headache, putting Lance Henriksen in there, but anyway, they've got and if you want to draw a comparison between Prometheus and this film, when they have the briefing in the cool doc thing, great set in both movies.
Yeah, sort of.
In the Ridley Scott film, who is a great visualist who, frankly, based on current evidence, is only as good as his scripts, but we won't go there yet. Ooh, Riddler. I can see that hangar in Prometheus, and it looks great. The one in Alien vs Predator is clearly a lovely set, but everything's shot on probably a 50mm portrait lens with the aperture open, so it's all bokeh. So it's all portrait, and I can't see that awesome set before. There's all these Weyland-Yutani logos and diggers and stuff, but you watch that scene and you can't see any of it.
Is it me? Doesn't it start with him on a gantry, if I'm remembering rightly? So there are higher up shots of this.
Yeah, but they tend to be quite quick.
But they're quick, yeah.
So you never get to drink it in, and then when you're in the pyramid, and you could argue, if you're a lazy prick, that it's supposed to be claustrophobic, and it's like, well, that's not how that works.
But no, but that only works once you have to establish geography, which is something like Alien does that. One could level that accusation at Alien because it predominantly takes place in the corridors of a ship, but you establish the
you
geography
feel
of the ship.
that kind of wide screen, and you feel the geography and the size and shape and the space of the rooms, and you don't get that in this film because this and that's where we get started on the action scenes, which are so choppy, like all Anderson stuff. It's so choppy, you see nothing, and you never get time to drink anything in. So. One of my frustrations with this is that even in something kind of shit with cool stuff in it, that cool stuff can exist in isolation. So you can take like a few scenes out and watch them on YouTube, you know, even when something's a bit rubbish.
Well, that's kind of how I came to it. Because I remember when they released, in the lead up to it, even back then they were releasing clips online, and one of them was that battle with the alien and the predator, and the sort of fight, and I was like, ooh, you know, but very much it's the set pieces are fine. I don't like. My biggest beef with it coming out there was that they really fucked over the predators. I get they were young, unblooded ones, but it was like it just didn't feel right. You know, one alien takes out two of them, and then the other ones sort of, you know.
It's Anderson. That's how he treats his characters. They're just gone. Off you go.
And it didn't have any weight, you know, really. And I just thought, I don't know. It felt like we were putting these characters in. It was like we had to find a place to put them that was uninhabited, so that, you know, you could never level the accusation of why don't humans know about them in the future. But it's like you said. I mean, it's established in Predator that it happens in the hottest months in the jungle. It likes heat. I always like the idea that they came from a very hot planet. That's why.
Yeah, of course. Surely that's what they see in heat as well, because they come from a dense jungle planet.
The only thing I'll say for that though is, like, if you're going to hunt things and you see an infrared, wouldn't the better place to do it be in the Antarctic, because everything hot would stand out more against the cold background, rather than being in the heat and everything's hot.
I'm going to give you a really, this is the nittiest of nitpicks that fucks me right off, right?
Yeah.
For the infrared vision in that movie, they use the modern infrared cameras which go from purple to yellow instead of like from blue to yellow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the greens in it. So they've used, so the Predator vision looks more modern, and the fact it looks shitty and video-ish in the old film, use the outdated technology as a Predator thing to keep a bit of consistency, because it gives it that alien look.
They did it in AvP as well.
We will
film,
get
which we will get to. They go back to, they treat the Predator right, but then they put his vision back to that. But it's like, like you say, it's like, why? Unless it was like Antarctic vision, Arctic Mission
Predator.
Yeah,
amazing.
But yeah, it's that, because obviously the Dark Horse comics and stuff were all set in the world of aliens, and they were set in the future with the colonial marines with a kind of backdrop, and there was this warring fact, this thing of like the aliens and the predators were warring, and people were caught in the middle of it. Now, the argument, I get it, on a $50 million budget, that's very hard to do, but Aliens was on what, 12 million? It was a very small budget, and he pulled it off. We were watching Ghosts of Mars in our hotel room when we were doing Comic-Con this weekend, and one of the things that I noticed about it was like, again, not a massively expensive film, obviously, but the set had been built like a big base on Mars, and it's like, if you're going to build a pyramid set, and alright, don't get me wrong, I get it, in the wides it's probably extended with CGI and stuff, but you're building sets of corridors and stuff like that. What else is a space station? It's like, why can't you just set this in space?
I think the thing to bring back the colonial marines, I think, is the way to go.
Definitely.
It then, and I myself have said, it draws comparisons to Aliens, which is a really monolithic thing, but I think that's the way to go. That's what people expect. And Paul Anderson was like, well, it's Alien, not Aliens.
What does that even mean?
It's like,
it's
well,
not
exactly.
Alien either.
Because it's not in a spaceship. There's not one of them. Like, everything about that is wrong.
Yeah, there's a queen in it.
Oh, it's Alien Resurrection versus Predator because everyone's Sigourney Weaver's mutant clone. Everyone's Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
Just, well, yeah. This is the thing; it squanders its potential, and I think there is in the hands of the right director and the right writer, even for 50 million, you could have done something good.
Oh, you can still make.
I mean, Predators, which we will get to as well, is on a jungle planet, right?
Yeah.
They didn't film that on a jungle planet. It's on a jungle on Earth. Do some shit in the jungle, in a jungle rough. Prodigy reference. But but do that, and then have a pyramid on that planet. It's so much more visually interesting, a bit richer. I mean, it's a bit harder with the creature effects and stuff. Which is a nice segue into the creatures.
Yes.
Because this is a really interesting thing of where you take something verbatim on paper and you change one thing and it ruins it. So Kevin Peter Hall, that portrayed Harry and the Hendersons, there's the TV show and the film, and played the Predator, and he played the Predator in Predator 2. Tall, thin guy. Rake thin guy. I think he was got a kind of dancing background or something. Did he? Was he an athlete?
The dancing guy was the alien guy.
Oh, anyway, okay.
French lad. But he had a martial arts background.
Martial arts background. Yeah, what the Predator costume requires is about an inch of foam. So if you see on the set of Predator when they take the mask off Kevin Peter Hall to give him a bit of water, it's this huge thick thing around. So you put that keeping in mind 7 feet high, thin guy with an inch of rubber. It looks like a kind of average build guy, like perhaps you or I, but really huge.
Yeah.
Instead of a skinny guy. What Paul Anderson did, and this ties into the weird kind of teenage horny boy thing, he hired big wrestler physiques.
I thought they were basketball players. I mean, I know the costumes look that way.
No, they're big. No, in this one, in Predator 2, they're basketball players at the end of the Chicago Bulls or some shit. I don't know basketball. But they,
at the end, but yeah.
they're big bodybuilder physiques, and then it has that inch of rubber. So if you look, they've all got that kind of triangle Dorito shape, and they all look like they've got really short, dumpy limbs.
They're very bulky, yeah.
So the main Predator is in effect the classic Predator costume, but it's put on a huge guy, so he just looks cheap. So he moves really slowly. You know, a Predator's got that kind of slightly ninja thing.
But it's just got the mask, isn't it? Because all the rest of them is like sort of armour plate, even though they're still scantily clad, they're still like armour plate.
Kind of tuned up to. Well, this is the thing, because you can't just have the blades. You have to have this massive sword. It looks stupid. The thing is a shuriken. You bring back the net.
Yeah.
It's so horribly over designed, and then it's put on the wrong physique.
Yeah.
So it just looks ridiculous.
It's just turned up to 11. I mean, it's lazily, the fact that they've got swords as wrist blades.
And the shoulder cannons are enormous.
Yeah.
And it's just it's essentially the same thing, but just dialed up a little too high, and it looks crap, and it ruins it. And that's what I mean, because you can't excerpt clips from this and kind of go like when he fucking punches that Predator. It's like, well, the Predator looks like shit. For some reason, they shortened the aliens' heads. I don't know why. So go have a look and see they've shortened it, and it's not catastrophic, but you know it's Alien versus Predator. Though we've used, I think they're kind of a mix between the Alien and Aliens. Alien.
I thought they look more like
black.
the Resurrection.
Oh,
yeah, they're black, but they look more like the Resurrection style.
But they don't seem to have the back pipes, do they? Do they have the back pipes?
Yeah, I think they do.
Oh, they do.
But it's things like that first Predator that gets taken out by him. The one that I thought probably looked the most interesting, of course, gets immediately dispatched.
Really easily, because they're adolescent predators.
Yeah, but I remember McFarlane, what's his name? Todd McFarlane released like a bunch of toys to tie in with it, and one of them was a little set that was of that Predator like having been stabbed through the chest. And it exposed one of the biggest problems with that scene, which is that you've got this alien with a tail that's massive because it had to reach all the way around.
Just to create that shot that looks cool when they come
both heads coming close face to face, and it's like, and that annoyed me because that was used a lot in promotional stuff. But it's like that Predator's not really there; he just sort of gets killed immediately, and it's like, I don't know that, and then when it takes its mask off at the end, I thought it was just looked overly rubbery, overly articulated. I think
they've changed the mandibles. They're really big and
they're big, but they're like just way too over articulated. So it's like,
and the face seems to be like kind of shrunk down.
It just doesn't. The Predator has never looked as good as he does in the first film. Like,
no,
it's so well put together.
They've come close, I think, a few times, but it's never because the Predator 2 one is way too over designed. And also, I don't think the Predator behaves like a predator. He gets a he gets a chest burster put in him. He gets impregnated. Surely a predator would just go, well, my friends are dead. This is all over. I'm just going to blow everything up.
Yeah,
because he does. I totally can get behind predators teaming up with humans. Like, I'm totally fine with it when in the right circumstance. Totally fine with it. But he just doesn't kill himself and everyone in that pyramid for the sake of that last scene.
Yeah, I got to imagine as well. I know it's just me imagining stuff, but you would have thought when a predator goes out on a hunt, he has that wrist thing put on him. And it's locked on him. You can't just detach it.
I never conceived that you would just go. Meh.
Yeah, like if you could take it off and throw it away, and it looks like a sort of Game Boy or what is it, a Nintendo DS or if you can just detach it and throw it, then it takes away the whole element of like that's your final stand. This is how you get rid of. So I thought the idea of it is a bit poor sportsmanship on the part of the Predators, but I think it's more the fact that they have to erase any trace of themselves. Yeah,
so precisely. You know, they can't be anything left. I mean, even as a kid, that's what I took away from Predator. Yeah, is that the Predator destroys itself because it has to erase all trace and can't leave its technology behind or evidence of its existence.
And I always thought as well that obviously it's not when you look at AvP, but it's like in the first Predator, you just see at the start it has that thing of the ship going past and this little going like that. And you've got to imagine, like, you can't get back. Like, it looks like a sort of, you're going to go there and you're just going to fight until you die kind of thing. Because they really are quite a suicidal race of aliens. But it's like, it's almost, they have to have this big final stand.
I can conceive that, like, if you won, they'd come and get you. But
I mean,
because in Predator 2, they lay in wait for the Predator.
That's true.
But, that's in the, that this is kind of geek shit,
But the thing is, I watched this film so many times looking for great things because I really wanted it to be good. And things like that opening shot of the satellite that looks like an alien queen, then looks like a predator, and then, and they're really well put together moments, but they are moments, and like you said, they are things you can just experience completely divorced from the source material. I remember there was an extended version where you kind of saw the original settlers in their Arctic huts getting killed by really, again, just totally inconsequential. You know, there's no backbone of a good story here, and I think that's the problem with it. It's just rotten through the middle. The exterior stuff's okay. Yeah, I don't like the design of the Predators and stuff like that. And there's some very kind of hokey shots of like this blade coming at the camera like that, almost like it was designed for 3D. But it's fundamentally flawed at its core. I think is the biggest problem with it.
Yeah, it's cheap and technically uninteresting and borderline incompetent on every level, and just does not treat the characters with respect. We normally end. We tend to cut away when we laugh about something, but there's nothing to be enjoyed here. There will be no humour. Goodbye.